Welcome, class. This is Digital Photography, Discovering Your Creative Potential. Spring 2026. This is lesson 13. Today is April 29th, 2026. I apologize for the difficulties I've had on my end, not your fault. Last 2 weeks and trying to get presentations put together. A couple of things got in the way and I wasn't able to complete those video presentations. So you're excused from having to review those, and I apologize for the confusion and any difficulty it might have caused on your end. But nevertheless, here we are. It is now time to continue forward. We've got about a month left of school, basically 5 weeks, including this week. So we're in the home stretch, and it's time to perfect what we're trying to do and get good at it and go down the road. So this is a class where I'm going to show you how to do photoshopping, how to do photo processing, photo editing from the digital standpoint. So let's talk about some of those things. Let's get right into it. Okay. What is digital photo processing? All right. So photoshopping, what does that mean? That's where you take a photo and you change it. So we can do that electronically. Okay. You can do it manually, overlaying one photo over another photo, or lightening it or darkening it, and various manual techniques you can use in a dark room when you're working with film or the final print of the photograph. You can do that whether it's film or digital, but that's called photoshopping. Processing is taking the data and creating a photograph of it, a digital representation like we look at and we just take for granted. Okay. A camera is a lens on a computer, and it is a digital camera. And so all of that data then has to be prepared and exchanged the way we want it to. And that's called processing. A raw photograph is one where your camera presents the images taken off the camera without any changes. And it's a very large image, and it takes special software to be able to handle those images because they're so big. They hold so much data. That's called a raw image, where it hasn't been changed by the computer yet. JPEG, on the other hand, means Joint Photographic Experts Group. So as an organization that compresses raw photographs and turns them into JPEGs. And what this does is it balances high color detail up to 24-bit or 16.8 million colors. And it makes small file sizes so they're easier to process and easier to use. So it automatically changes the picture representation of your photo, and it makes it easier to use and easier to process or Photoshop in our electronic darkroom. Okay. HDR, then a high definition resolution. We'll talk about that in the next slide. Color space is that graph that you'll see, a color graph or a model with all the many, literally millions of representations of colors that a computer can generate, all the shades and hues and so forth, is all combined together into a graph to create colors. And the basic colors combined together, like yellow plus red equals orange, I think. Like if you're a painter in the palette, you can create colors that way. Well, the computer does it through HDR, and we can control that, what color we want something. And the hue and the color and the texture is all part of our processing. Color space then is that math and graph model. Okay. Metadata is a system the computer uses that whatever picture you take with your cell phone, with a point and shoot camera, with a professional camera, it creates metadata, and it will up to, depends on your settings and the type of camera and everything that you use. It will tell you the date, the time, sometimes the location, if that's part of your system, where you might have a GPS. It'll say this was in a specific area at a certain date and time, or it will tell you the settings on the camera. which can be very important. The metadata, like for artistic work or for journalistic work, you often see that. You'll often see the artist display the metadata, the camera settings, so that the viewer then will know and understand how the photo was created. And we can use that in our processing, and we can use it to help and so forth. Here's one. Let me make this a little bit bigger. More terms. Contrast, range of difference between the darkest and lightest tones in an image. That's called contrast, the difference. So you've got sunlight and shade. There's going to be a huge contrast between those two because of the tremendous power of the sun versus the shade. Saturation, the intensity or purity of colors in an image. The intensity or purity is called saturation. If you have a picture, let's say, of a bunch of flowers, red, yellow, white, green, and they're all beautiful and the striking color, but one of those colors isn't quite as luminous as the others, then you can change that. Desaturate, to reduce the saturation of an image, making it less colorful. And as farther you go on the spectrum, it will become black and white. Okay. And then black and white, monochrome, or sepia is, the terms that we use, various types of black and white type images. Luminance refers to the brightness or lightness of a specific color. And sometimes we can use an ordinary color picture and make it really cool, make it really stand out by changing the luminance. So that's one thing. Crop is making the picture smaller. Remove outer parts of the image. It doesn't have to be, proportionate. You can remove the right side, the left side, the top, the bottom. You can do whatever you want to do. But that changes the picture and the focal point and the focus point, if you will, of a picture. Sharpening is a technique to make edges with an image appear more distinct and crisp. Okay, sharpening an image. You can do that digitally. Noise reduction, reducing the appearance of a digital distortion through grain or tiny colored specks, often caused by high ISO settings. When you have a high ISO, where your camera will take pictures of in low light, it will gather more light to your lens. Sometimes the problem is that the picture becomes noisy or grainy, and you can change that through the noise reduction feature in your Photoshop. I'll show you guys that in a minute. And HDR, the high dynamic range, a technique that combines multiple exposures of the same scene to produce an image with a greater range of light and dark details. So HDR, we can use that. Like, it's a technique that I use in real estate photography. If you take a room, you look at a room, and you'll say, okay, there's bright sunlight over here. Then over here, there's dark shadows. You can make the shadows light by combining an image that will make the bright sunlight stay there. And so it's an image that makes the entire room bright from all angles. Call that HDR. Or bracketing where you layer photos on top of the other. And that's how that occurs. Okay. All right. So RAW versus JPEG. Again, I didn't know what JPEG was until I taught this class. Joint Photographic Experts Group. I mean, I use it all the time. I prefer JPEG. It's easier to use. You can use it on a standard program, and I've seen magnificent billboard sized shots done through JPEG. There are some photographers that only use RAW. Okay, that's just the way they are. They think, well, you have to use RAW because it's the most detailed image where nothing is removed from the original picture. Okay, and cameras are getting so detailed now. I mean, 10 years ago, if you had like a 8 megapixel camera, that was plenty. And in pros, you use that. Well, or 20 years ago, then it went to 10, 20, 40, and then now like the middle size cameras, middle format cameras can have 100 megapixels, 100 million pixels in a frame. And so it's extremely detailed. But anyway, a raw photo, uncompressed, unprocessed image file containing all data captured by a camera sensor. Unlike JPEGs, which bake in settings like contrast and white balance, raw files offer maximum lossless quality, allowing for extensive non-destructive editing in software like Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom. Okay. So editing flexibility, they're essential for professional photographers who need to manipulate exposure of color drastically without creating artifacts. Image recovery, you can often rescue underexposed photos that would be impossible to fix in a JPEG. Okay. They're higher quality prints. So in other words, RAW is for artistic or scenarios where the photographer wants to use the best quality image. If you're shooting a one-time event, or if you're an artist, you're doing a headshot of a Hollywood movie star or something like that, a celebrity. That's the time that most folks use RAW. And then JPEG is your everyday, easier to process, maneuver, and Photoshop scenarios. Okay, when to use JPEG? When you need to share them immediately, you have more limited storage space, you're shooting at a high-speed event, do not want to slow down your camera's buffer. Okay, it's easier to shoot JPEG. I shoot it 90% of the time. It's just easier to use. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at. All right. Hold on here. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to, hold on here. All right. This is a file that I prepared. I'm just sharing this. I took some pictures from other files. I want to show you some of the features and ways to do photoshopping, because you guys have asked me, and it's at that stage where you're doing your final projects, and I want you to have some background on this. All right, so this was a picture from last semester that was sent to me by a student. Okay. And so you can see in this picture that he shot it at a baseball game. Okay. Almost ground level. I don't know if the dugout was lower or if he lowered it, but it appears to be waist high of the athlete or lower. And you can see the athlete in that perspective, which is outstanding, because normally we shoot eye level, and everything we shoot is eye level, because that's where we hold our phone or our camera, and that's the way we do it, because it's just human nature. It's just second response. If you learn to elevate or lower or go to the side of a subject, I think you'll find interesting angles will create better pictures. So he was right about doing that. He submitted this picture. Okay. What's the problem with this picture? Okay. It's a very, very bright day. The athlete is wearing a helmet that covers his face, covers his head. So you can't really see him very well. He has a dark skin tone. And so that doesn't show up very well. And so what I did for him was I showed him how to process this picture and say, okay, look, let's take this picture and let's improve it. using our digital system. So I used Adobe Lightroom and I changed the picture. So this is the one, the unprocessed picture and the processed picture, okay? And I didn't spend a lot of time dealing with color saturation and stuff like that. His colors are good. The reds really pop, the greens and blues pop. He probably could have done something with the backdrop, but that's nevertheless, there's a screen there. And so, you know, the backstop or whatever you call it. And so that part is you know, not a whole lot you can do with that. So what I did with this picture to highlight this athlete, okay, and to show this, you know, the physical presence of the athlete, and to show his face and his features, is I photoshopped this picture and very briefly photoshopped it so you can see his face, and you can see and I also cropped it, you know, because we don't need all these fans back here and everything. I just felt it was a better picture. And so he shot this with a telephoto lens. In the backdrop, the bokeh or the bokeh or the blurred part accentuates the athlete. All right. And so that's what he was doing with this picture. Okay. He was doing that with this picture. And so so you can see the difference in the picture. A very mediocre, unusable picture over here. And then when it's simply Photoshopped by lightening it up and changing some tone and some other features, and it could be made even better. But I just wanted to show him how using a program, even like on the Apple computer, like the one here, and I'll show you that in a second, can make this picture even better than it is. Okay, so that's one of the pictures that I wanted to show you guys. All right, let's look at a couple more. All right, let's say, okay, here's another one. Okay, same photographer, and here's the same result. Okay, so this is somebody that is still pretty dark skin tone, but not quite as dark as the young man in the other picture. Okay, and so what I did is I don't think this one isn't cropped at all, because I felt the crop was very good from his camera and exposure in the lens. You can see the bokeh in the background not a great picture, but when it shows his intensity and a display of the athlete quite well. If you wanted one like for publication, you might want to have it like from the other side, where you can see, instead of behind him for a right-hander, he's obviously a right-hander, you have it in front of him from the other side of the ball diamond. But just make it so you could see who he is. I lightened it up and just made a couple of very basic changes to that. So that's how I did that one. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, we have plenty of time. All right, so this is a picture I recently took, all right, with my cell phone. It's a cell phone picture, all right? I have an Apple iPhone. All right, so what this picture shows, a cannon at a fort in North Florida. Okay, literally where the cannon was shooting is over into, I believe it's South Carolina. It's across the estuary of the river there. And so how do you make this picture using Apple tools? So where my cursor is right there, I go along over here, and you can, one of these is crop. You can crop your photo. I think the way Apple does it is they do it like this. So you can enlarge it that way. Okay. Well, Apple will let you do that, but that's not really as good as cropping. So this is, if you hit these three lines here, these three horizontal lines, it will allow us to Photoshop this picture. So, all right, so the Canon's too dark. It's a big black piece of metal. Canon's too dark. So let's lighten up the Canon a little bit, where you can see, so you can see when it's dark like that, you can't see any of the features of the Canon. So let's lighten it up a little bit. Let's play with contrast here. By the way, this is your color space. up here, your color space on top here has automatic levels. This one isn't really a color picture. It has bright colors that stand out. But okay, let's say you go contrast here, play with the contrast a little bit. What does that give us? Not a lot of change, but a little bit more, a little bit more. Highlights, maybe. You're changing that around a little bit. Shadows, can we deal with the shadows? See how that improves? See how that, just in this very simple program, how that improves the viewing of the dark object against the sunlight. Okay, saturation, temperature. Here's our sepia. It's called sepia, or black and white, or monochrome. And if you shoot it in one of those formats, you're removing the color. It becomes an old black and white picture. And if you change it, you can change the color of the sky too. But that's how that you can change that slider down here changes it to, if you want to go black and white. Okay, and then the sharpness of the picture. This one is fairly sharp. It's a very wide angle lens, or everything in the picture should be of equal sharpness. But if you play with that a little bit, see how that makes it just a little bit better. If you go over here, go just a little bit better on the sharpness. And so that's how you make a presentable image from kind of a dud, just a big black. Everything's in the shade type of image, and you have that on your Apple. You have this. I'm using right now a MacBook that has built in. I don't know what version it is. I could tell you. Let's see. I could tell you. This is a. Sorry. This is a. It's 3 or 4 years old. This is Apple M1. And the operating system is Tahoe 26.2. So you can make an unpresentable picture into something that's decent. And so let's say you have a picture of a family member, an event, or something that's important to you. You don't need a Lightroom, or you don't need an expensive program to make simple improvements like that. Apple has that built in. I think you can also do it on your phone, but I never do it, and I'm not very good at it. But there also is that program that's available on your phone. Okay. Or any other computer has. If you're not an Apple person and you have the Microsoft format, then or if you have a different format for your phone, like a Samsung or one of those, they have comparable programs, is my understanding. Okay, so that's how you change kind of a cruddy picture, and you make it into something that's savable by using it in your iPhone. Okay. All right. So let me show you now. Let's see how much time I have. Okay. I've got 6 or 7 minutes. I'm good. All right. This is my Photoshop program. So what I did is I shot a cycling event a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to show you some of the pictures I took and so forth. This was actually a picture of a poster. The poster was made with a photo I made a couple of years ago from the same event, and they used it as a poster. So I took a picture of the poster, Bike MS, and it was the Florida version of that. So if you go to some of these pictures that I took, like this one, these are all post-processed pictures where the athletes and the people, the participants, have the right to, have their picture viewed online. And so I took a lot of these pictures. I'm just scrolling through because there's one or two they asked me if I had any more. So pictures like this where people are coming in and they're finishing their ride, and they might have done 50 or 100 miles or something like that, and they're finishing their ride, and they're happy, and they're rejoicing, and it's a charity event and so forth. So this is a picture of people on the finish line. And so I have my settings for automatic and HDR where I can do these, and it's preset. But you see, this was a very bright day, and this was very, very dark. The shadows were very dark. So I had to make these guys look like they were a little bit lighter. So if I change my exposure here, and this is the tool bank the toolbox for the simple Adobe Lightroom. This is cropping up here. If I want to crop the photo, I can crop, make it smaller, stuff like that. So I can change the angle and the aspect of the photo, okay? This eraser is I can go in and literally Photoshop or change. I can like, well, if I don't like this guy, I can take him out of the picture. Or I can add somebody else in if I'm skillful at it. And so, but these are the basic, this is how a photographer uses this program. So there are also automatic settings, and you can see up here, there are preset settings that you can use, preset settings where I can change this around, and I can make it any of these presets. So these are my monochrome settings, or I can make it a black and white picture if I feel like it, and so forth and so on. Cool, black and white, dark, can make it dark, and you might want that bright. Here's the bright setting, can make it like that. I can do a lot of things with this picture. And it would take hours to go through all these, and some of them I use and some of them I don't. But that's what Photoshop does. So here's an example of a picture. Let's do one. Let's do one back here. Let me see. All right, here's a guy that came in, and fairly, it was a long range shot with a telephoto lens, dark skinned fella. So he's going to be in the shadows as it is. So if I lighten him up a little bit, so by the exposure, if I lighten it up a little bit, then I can make it more viewable. If I lower the contrast a little bit, it makes him stand out a little bit. If I go down here, I can there are places down here I can change the color. So there's not a lot of blue in this picture, okay? Because he's only got that really sky blue. But let's see how I can brighten his color. I can change that. So I can change his color, see, like that. Or I can take it to a totally different view or point of view. And then like there's orange in the background. You see the orange pole, and I can change the color of the orange to suit my creative interests. I can do that. I can make it a little bit brighter and that sort of thing. That's what Photoshop does. And that's what Lightroom can do for you. You take a guy like this, bright yellow, just exploding yellow, where all you see is him, and then the background, there's nothing there. If I take this yellow, I can change the hue and the tint of the yellow a little bit here by playing with the colors, okay. And so that was an event that I shot, and an example of photoshopped programs that, and I'll show you some of my pictures that I took. Examples of people that that are participants. So this one I cropped a little bit. It made it stand out a little bit more personalization. Here's another one that I cropped. Some of the participants in the event, and some of the bike riders. And let's see. This is one I took the picture of some bagels, and I made it into black and white, focusing on the artistic side of that. Well, it didn't really turn out like I wanted it to, but I was just playing with it. Here's one, an attempt at an artistic endeavor of shooting some water bottles, and I could also play with that, with the exposure a little bit, and some of the colors if I chose to. The event started in the dark, and so it was a real challenge for me because I had to use a camera flash, and the flash then with all the other lights, you can see there's some backlights here, and so forth. So it was a challenge technology wise to get all the pictures to make everybody stand out due to the the different different colors, and now it's starting to get light outside, and trying to make everybody look like they want to look. I mean, it's an important event. People traveled for, all over the eastern part of the United States, and they wanted to be, to remember the event and have photographs that would remember the event. It was important to them. And so one of the things you do in photography is, here's one that I could make, a little bit brighter. One of the things you do in photography is you memorialize events like this, and then they will always have that memory to jog their memory. Here's one. What I did with this one is I went to the side, okay, and I shot one in the front right here. It's kind of a boring picture. She wasn't paying attention. This one wasn't paying attention. I said, look at me and smile, and she wouldn't do it. She was distracted. But you get that. So what I did is I took this picture, ordinary. It looks like a cell phone snap, no big deal, worth about a quarter. It's not worth my. This one, only by changing the angle and the perspective, going a little bit lower than eye level, it made it into a much better photo. Okay, you get the symmetry of the bike wheels lined up in the front. They all have the same jersey on. These are ride marshals, obviously. And getting in the lineup and look to the right, look to the left, line up left to right, look to the left, and just changing that angle made that into a picture. Okay. Here's some other representations from the event. Let's see. I think that's about it. Band was playing. I took a picture of them. And throughout the day, people coming in. People started dancing to the band. I thought it was pretty funny to watch. Older folks dance. We're all pretty funny. These were some high school kids that were working, and I said, let's dance, you guys. And they started dancing, and it just created some joy. Create joy with your photography. They were dancing, and they got a picture, and they said, what do you mean? I said, just dance. And then so they started dancing, and I wish I had a video of it, because they were actually really good. It's like, wow, how'd they learn how to do that? But they're really good, and it was watching the joy in their face made it worthwhile. Okay, so that's an example of that. Okay, I'm run over time. I apologize. That's the end of week 13, April 29th. And I'll talk to you guys. Next week. If you have any questions or problems or issues in your photos assignment, let me know, please, ASAP. I'm more than willing to help you. And let's do this together and create joy and have fun and learn how to make memories. Okay. All right. Have a good week.